Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another month of Astro-Tarot Forecast. My name is Millie. I'm here with my co-host Susheela, and we're here to give you the forecast for the month of June. Hi, Susheela. How are you?
I am good. I'm riding that Mercury retrograde wave.
Yeah,
Double,
absolutely.
double seat belts, life preserver, computer
Yeah, I,
backup.
I was just telling Susheela how my laptop has done funky things with this Mercury retrograde, and over the last couple of Mercury retrogrades, it's done something funny. So I think that it's time for a new laptop. I think that that's what I'm going to invest in next because every Mercury retrograde, it's done something. And I feel like if I keep putting it off, the next one, it's just going to go completely kaput. And then I'm going to be, I'm going to be sorry that I didn't listen to the signs.
There you go. Yeah. And that's kind of our nice segue into our theme of not listening to the signs.
Yes. So, you know, we're moving out of eclipse season. Right now, we are recording this on May 25th. So we are a few days away from the new moon in Gemini, which is on May 30th. Which, if you go back to our May forecast, we touched on that. But I wanted to bring that up now because I don't know what your thoughts are, Susheela, but the way that I was taught uh, by my very first astrology teacher is that we section off, if you will, eclipse season from the new moon before the first eclipse and then the new moon after that second eclipse. And that kind of embodies the whole eclipse season. So this new moon in Gemini of May 30th is going to end eclipse season, and I find it really interesting that we're ending eclipse season with a new moon in Gemini coming out of a Mercury retrograde, partially in Gemini. And eclipses are times of great changes, great endings that really shift everything.
Mhm.
And to me, because it's Gemini, it's a significant shift in mindset.
Yep.
It's like you got to get clear, like you got to get honest, because we've given you all of the data, Gemini and Mercury retrograde, and this new moon in Gemini of May 30th is really what I think starts off the month of June. It's what kind of sets the tone and the intention for the month of June.
Yeah, I mean, we're entering this new era. We've been preparing for this new era for a long time, since slightly before you and I started our podcast, actually. And we were just talking before we started recording about the purging, and the universe has been telling us it's time to purge. You want to enter that new space, that new life, the new consciousness, whatever it is. You need to purge. You need to get rid of all this stuff, this nonsense that you've been holding on to. And whether it's, just your programming or habits or people or whatever, you cannot take that with you and get the stuff that you want. And it doesn't have to be tangible stuff, but it could be. It could be a new career. It could be a different, material life, status, just awareness, clearing your emotions, a different state of mind, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. You cannot take that old crap with you. And we're entering this part now where it's like, if you didn't purge, if you kept saying, yeah, yeah, I'm purging, I'm tidying, I'm cleaning, I'm whatever, the universe is coming in ruthlessly and is just going to wipe it away. And for me, the tower, we had it as our card of the week last week, and that frightens everybody. But if you've been doing the work, you shouldn't be so frightened. It should be like a surprise, something pleasant showing up. But if you haven't been doing the work or as thoroughly as you should, maybe it's gonna feel like a tower moment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing that we were talking about before we started recording was how June just feels like it's like go, 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 go. There's no, the universe, the cosmos works so perfectly in that they do give us time for everything. So we've had the time to process and to feel and to come to the awareness and to, hopefully do something with that awareness and all of that. And now it's time to implement. And so we begin with, like I said, that new moon in Gemini of May 30th. And then a few days later, just a few days later, we begin on June 3rd with Mercury going direct in Taurus. And so it's important to remember that Mercury was in this degree of Taurus back in late April and early May, and of course, once it went retrograde in that first week of May. So, with all of that said, these are conversations, these are thought processes, these are thought patterns that went through a lot of transformational energy, especially with those eclipses through the month of May. And now Mercury, being the planet of communication, cognitive thought, perception, the lens from which we look at the world, in Taurus, it's now much grounded, and it's a different lens. It's a different lens from which we look at the world. And this mindset, this lens that we are looking from now, is meant to be that mindset that guides us. So it's it goes, just to piggyback on what you said a few moments ago, it's what matters. What, like, did you let go of the things that hold you back? One of the things that I've been saying for a few months now, because this is what this energy this year asks us to do, is what deserves my time, energy, and effort? What deserves my time, energy, and effort? And now that Mercury is going direct on June 3rd in Taurus, an earth sign, a practical sign, what is the most logical way to move through this? Because there's no chaos or drama in the middle. What is that?
Interestingly enough, we have the Ace of Swords. And this
I
is
love that
really
card.
about clarity of thought. Everything that seemed murky and foggy and not working, it's clear now. And it's no coincidence that there's this spiral here. And it's, that shell is part of the Fibonacci sequence. It's in nature all over the place. So it's that clarity of thought is not something unnatural. It's the truth. It's what happens in nature. It's when you actually can see through the veil, when you feel more connected, when you feel more grounded, when you've removed all the extra. That's when you have it. And it's a spiral too, which means you get to revisit something. It's not a circle. You're not on this track going around. You're actually elevating. You get to revisit the same spot from a higher level. And so I think it's a perfect card for that day. No coincidence.
So perfect. So perfect. So lovely. I really think that, and it's important to note that we can't look at eclipse season, like we can't go into June. Really, we can't go into the second half of 2022 thinking like, oh, eclipses happened. They kind of sucked. All right, how do I move on now? Like, I mean, and they didn't suck for everyone, but the point of eclipses is that they bring something to our awareness, our attention, they change something in our lives, and we're meant to carry the lessons. So the second half of the year is to implement this new awareness, these new lessons onto our lives, because that's what we're meant to carry. And I think that's important to note, because there is really no going back. There was a sense of clarity that was about, you need this amount of clarity. You need to really see what's in front of you. You really need to see what needs to be let go of. And now, that isn't to say I wish it was as easy as like, oh, I'm aware of it and now I won't do it anymore. But like anything else, it's okay, so how do I implement? How do I actually put the work of putting this new software to use, right? And I think that has a lot to do with Saturn going retrograde till October, and Saturn begins its retrograde cycle on June 4th. So I don't know, the summer, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, so the months of like May through about October tend to be when a lot of the planets are retrograde at the same time. that period of time tends to get a bad rap sometimes, like don't start anything, everything's going to be super slow. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. I think that especially Saturn moving retrograde, it gives us the opportunity to revisit our foundations and what they're based on. And it gives us the opportunity to say, is this a solid foundation for my well-being in the long run, which is what the energy that Saturn rules. And so Saturn going retrograde, and Saturn had a huge, huge part to play in the eclipses because of its aspect to the eclipses. We now get to say these lessons that were brought on by these eclipses in May, how do I now learn, because we have to allow ourselves to go in with a student mentality, right? With a beginner's mind. How do I now learn to implement them as a foundation for my life from this point forward? And Saturn going retrograde till October gives us the opportunity to do that before the year ends, which means that these lessons will come with us, ideally, onto next year and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's funny. The card that I have, when I first got this card for this aspect, I was a bit like, the Knight of Cups. Like, so the Knights are they're champions of their suit. And cups are about love and nourishment and emotions and all that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, okay, I think he represents the universe. What, he's coming forth with an offer, an opportunity here. And his horse is in the background. He's not even riding the horse. He's come to this point here. He's sitting pretty casually. He's put effort into this to give you this offer, but he's sitting there. So he's arrived. He's done 80% of the work, and he shows up. And now you have to come forth. You actually have to come forth. The opportunities don't do their work for you. And so I think that is the message of the Knight of Cups in this. And it's cups. It's something that fulfills you emotionally, that fulfills your soul purpose. And so that's a nice stretch of time from June to October to implement the things that you've cleared the way for these things, you've purged. And now you have this chance to actually slowly, not there is action, but you can do it slowly when everything's clear. It's so much easier than when you're all bogged down and burdened and everything. And the opportunities are there. They're there, but they don't do their work on your behalf.
Yes. And Saturn is about the work. It is about the mastering of something. That's why it exists. Wherever we have Saturn in our chart and what sign it's in, that's how we're meant to master something in our lives. Currently, Saturn is in Aquarius. So we're meant to master building a new foundation from a completely different perspective than ever before, because that's what Aquarius represents. So with that in mind, it's like, understand that you're building a different life and that it's taken time and it's going to continue taking some time, but that's okay. And to really be mindful of the expectations of yourself. Again, allow yourself to have a beginner's mind. I think one thing that's going to help, having like a sense of, again, groundedness and just being very matter of fact. I think June is one of those months where we want to really lean into the matter of fact type of things. And I personally am not really mad at it. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been heavy. And sometimes the emotional body needs a break and, other parts of us need to work. So on June 10th, we have Mercury and Taurus creating a beautiful trine. Mercury now direct in Taurus, creating a trine to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. So we've had this aspect before. We had this aspect April 28th, May 25th. Yes, May 25th today. And we're having it again on June 10th. So whenever we have aspects, whenever I see particular planets do something, especially 3 times, there's a story that's unfolding. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. How did April start for you? How did it unfold in May? And how are you now going to proceed with what the previous 2 months showed you? And so Mercury and Taurus, remember, we're being practical. We're minding our value, because that's what Taurus energy has been wanting us to get through every single part of our body. What is worth your time, energy, and effort? And this trine to Pluto and Capricorn, considering everything that Pluto and Capricorn has done, this was all meant to get us in touch with our personal power.
Yeah.
So based on what is practical, what is in front of me, what do I count on, what don't I count on, what can I do, what can't I do now, just being very empirical about it. There's something empowering about saying, okay, this is where I stand. This is what I've got to work with. And if I want this and I don't have it yet, that's okay. I'll start here and I'll take things one step at a time. That's earth energy. Earth energy at its highest expression is that taking things one step at a time, mastering what's in front, and therefore you know that you will eventually get to where you want to get.
Mm-hmm. What's really interesting, and I won't mention what all of the cards are throughout the whole, this whole month, but
Mhm.
I just want to draw everyone's attention to something really bizarre with the numbers. So out of all of these cards for the month, for every aspect that I've pulled, we have one major arcana. Everything else is minor arcana. So
Okay.
the themes that are happening are these very day-to-day practical things. They are not the big soul-wrenching, life-altering. We've done that. These are like the little steps. And the numbers of the cards, and I won't tell you the suits so that it'll be a surprise still. It goes like this: 1, knight, so we had the knight, 10, queen, 3, 1, 6, 1, 5, 6, 6, 5, 3, 2, 2, 2, 10, 3, and then and actually there is one more major arcana as a extra card, but that's, you can see this weird pattern. They're even like mirrors of each other. So the
Yeah.
card that we have for this aspect on June 10th is the 10 of Swords, and it is an ending. It's an ending of something. So when in all of the minor suits, it goes from 1 to 9. 9 is completion. And then the next card is the last thing you do before a reset. It's a 1 and a 0. We go
Mhm.
back to that binary system. And this is about the reset of everything that is in your head. So we start the month with the ace, and we're already at the 10.
Mhm.
A few days later, 10 days later, or 7 days later in this case. And it's looking forward to this light. And this character here is like leaving all these things. These are all these burdensome thoughts. They're leaving. They're going, they're flying away, and she's walking into that light. So it is an ending and a new beginning simultaneously. And her feet are on the ground. She's barefoot there. She's earthing.
So appropriate for that last of those three aspects that repeated itself, again in April, May, and now a final time in June. Pay attention to when those things happen, because a story is unfolding for you, and astrology and tarot have a way of kind of explaining, okay, now it's time to move forward. We move from that to June 11th, in which Venus creates a conjunction to uh, Uranus in Taurus. So Venus moved into its home sign Taurus late May, May 29th. For a while, she was in Aries. Venus in Aries represented everything it represented. Now, Venus in Taurus is this essence of, I don't have to rush when there is certainty in me of what I have to offer. I don't have to, for lack of a better term, beg anyone to see the
Mhm.
value in me. I exude that. That is what emanates from within me when I am grounded in my values, in who I am, in what matters. I love a good Venus and Taurus. That I don't have any Taurus in my chart, but like Venus and Taurus is one of my favorite placements in the zodiac period. It's so soulful, it's so grounded, it's so beautiful, obviously in its highest expression.
Mhm.
Now coming together with Taurus, this can manifest in a few things. So, on a personal level, like on an individual level, this is you being yourself really, truly, authentically, unapologetically. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I do. This is what I look like. This is what I do for a living now. This is who I date now, right? This and being really firmly grounded in that.
Mhm.
On the other hand, this can also represent kind of like a meeting someone and love at first sight type of thing, right? Because it's in Taurus, it doesn't have the same flair. It doesn't, like, if this was a water sign or a fire sign, it'd be like love at first sight. It'd be all of the romance, like very Hollywood romantic comedy type of thing. Venus conjunct Uranus and Taurus, not the same. But whenever, because Uranus represents the unexpected and Venus is the planet of relationships, those coming together can be like this immediate spark between you and another person, but it can still take its time because of Taurus. So be mindful of that. On an one more interpretation, this can be manifesting some kind of money, manifesting some kind of fortune or something out of nowhere. So it's a pleasant surprise. um, and that rearranging parts of your life and being mindful of coming back to, okay, this is kind of big, this is kind of unexpected, this is out of nowhere, whether it's you actually getting money or losing money, because that's important to note as well.
Yeah.
How do you come back? How do you ground yourself to say, okay, how do I manage and deal with what's in front of me? So I wanted to give you an array of manifestations because Venus represents a lot of things in the zodiac. And with Uranus, just understand that it's this essence of not being controlled.
Mhm. It is no wonder that we have this
Wow.
self-assured Queen of Swords.
Mhm.
She's sitting there looking very confident. She has her sword drawn. It's not pointing outwards, but it's ready. And to go back to the relationship part of it, she's not taking any BS. She's not sitting there angry. She's looking like, okay, what do you got for me? Come on, show up. You got to show up right, or this sword is coming out. It's like there's no BS time here. It's like no flattery, no nonsense, no, blowing smoke up, whatever. It's just show me what you got. It's this and this and this. I can work with that. No illusions.
Right.
So the Queen of Swords sits up there. Um, I don't know if you can see that she's perched way up there on she's sitting comfy, but there's like mountains and everything in the background. The flags are flying. They're not there. There's wind. There's air. There's energy. Farsightedness. So even if there is a spark, it's like, okay, but there's a practical aspect to this. It's like, yeah, I'm happy there's a spark, but is this long term? Is this volatile? Is this whatever? And whatever it is, it's like you can at least assess it. There's the ability to assess it and put it where it belongs. It doesn't mean that you have to say no to things. It's just that you actually have the awareness things are presenting themselves as they are, or you at least have the discernment to judge what they are, how they are, where they fit, and that kind of thing. So, you can then take that into all aspects of your life, different opportunities that show up. Is this good for me? Is this um, financial offer? Do I, it's a new job and they're throwing all the bells and whistles at me. Oh, maybe that's a sign that there's something wrong. There's something wrong. What about the regulars? Never mind the bells and whistles. So this queen sees through all that.
I love that this queen sees through all that. I love that
Hmm.
because and I love that you mentioned that because I think that what I'm noticing is so many people, especially when it comes to careers and jobs and all of that, people are being so much more choosy and not in the way that you might expect.
Hmm.
Um, People are wanting more free time, right? People's values have shifted. They want to work from home because they understand what that does to their nervous system, to their mental health, and to their overall well-being. So I love that because we all have that in us. And it's time to express ourselves from that. What are my values? What's important to me? And unapologetically aligning with what supports that. And so I say this and I emphasize this because this isn't a time in which you want to lean back on doing things that you genuinely don't want to do.
Hmm.
The energy is supporting that you ask exactly for what you want. And if you don't find it in one place, believe me, you'll find it in another. And this ability to be able to look in a different direction comes from Mercury entering Gemini on June 13th. So on June 13th, Mercury finally moves fully into Gemini, and it'll go through the entire sign. And this is just further emphasis of the Mercury retrograde that started back in early May
Hmm.
and everything that happened in between. And so now, one of the gifts of Gemini is the ability to look at different options, the ability to be flexible in our perception, in the way that we approach life. So, if that Venus in Taurus, if that queen is just sitting there, this is what makes me happy. I rest on that. You can't give it to me? That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to keep a beginner's mind. I'm going to be open. I'm going to be flexible. And I'm going to look at other options. And that can be towards anything. That can be with jobs, relationships, your clothes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Rest in that. Remember that. What matters to you? What allows you to feel grounded in your own life? And how can you use Mercury and Gemini to look outside of what you've normally looked at, what you've normally said yes to all
Yeah.
the time, just because you thought that was the only option, and pause and say, no, I let me look. We're living in the world of the internet now.
Mm.
There's a ton of options.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I would say the warning that goes with that Queen of Swords is, oftentimes when people find their power and they become very direct and discerning, it can go overboard, and they
Mhm.
can become, she is on the downside, she's a bitchy queen.
Mhm.
When she's not in her high vibration, she is the unpleasant boss, the dictator, the whatever. And so we don't want that. We want to be a high vibrational Queen of Swords. And that means doing what you say, having integrity, having a balance, using that sword as a last resort,
Yeah.
not going in forcefully, just getting what you want all the time. It's like you ask for something because you actually need it, because you actually deserve it, and then it's your responsibility to follow through on that. And that's integrity. You can't just go around, she's sitting there, she's not waving her sword around going, give me this, and give me that, all
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And so the energy of Mercury in Gemini is this really nice collaborative energy of communicating with people in a group in order to have a common goal, reach a desired outcome, a common desired whatever, something for mutual benefit. And it's also about wrapping up things neatly. So if you're at work, if you're doing a specific task, do it completely. Collaborate with the people so that it's done fully, completely. If you're ending a job, wrap it up nicely. If you're ending a relationship, wrap it up nicely. A conversation, whatever it is, an argument, a dispute, it's all about that communication and collaborative aspect to it. And that may be different for people. That may be part of the new, their new learning curve of how to communicate and collaborate more effectively for the common good, not just what I want all the time.
Yeah, that's I think that theme of ending things, of ending them properly, like on a good note,
Yeah.
that really goes, that's a great segue for the full moon in Sagittarius of June 14th, because that closes off the cycle, a 6-month cycle of the new moon eclipse in Sagittarius that we had on December 3rd, 2021. That was the last eclipse of that Gemini Sagittarius cycle. That was the last eclipse that happened last December. And now we finally have the full moon of that. So Sagittarius in the zodiac is the gift of expansion, the gift of having like this vision, right? The ability to see beyond the horizons of what's in front of us. That's why it's known as the traveler of the zodiac, because it wants to expand its knowledge through not just what's in front of us, not just the traditional education, but through different cultures, different people. What that does is that it really solidifies this essence of truth and honesty. That's why Sagittariuses are also known as some of the more blunt and honest people in the zodiac, because it's that, right? It's the ability to be able to say, well, this is this is what's in front of us, and that's okay. Like, it's not, to speak the truth for a Sagittarius is just a way of being in life. Like, why not? Why not speak the truth in that? So this full moon brings on, what are the truths that have come up for us? What are the truths that have come up for us about ourselves, about some of the decisions that we made? And what do we now know with certainty, if we're being honest with ourselves, that we need to move away from? And so, but here's the thing, Sagittarius energy is about, this is what it is. All right, how do we move away from it? Because we can say that, for instance, like with Scorpio energy, like we have to release and we have to do the thing. But Scorpio has this energy of processing. It's a water sign. It's what I like to call the depth psychologist of the zodiac.
Yeah.
But Scorpio already did that, and Sagittarius is not interested in that.
Nope.
So this full moon, even in the middle of the month, gives us yet one more time this opportunity of looking at, like, what's up? What's the truth?
So I've got the Ace of Pentacles. So, now we're paying attention to these numbers. So we've got Ace and 10 and Ace again. Okay, we're back to the beginning. And Pentacles, yeah, it's an earthy thing, but it's the card of practical expansion. It's that first sign of something where you actually get to implement whatever it is. It's again walking into that opportunity without all the emotions and all of that stuff. This is like somebody handing you a big shiny coin so that you can turn it into 10 shiny coins. That's what it is. And it's beautiful here because it's got the growth, the roots, and the little shoots coming up, and the hands are dirty because they've been working. They've been toiling. It's not a free lunch.
Right. This work, this truth that's coming up with this full moon in Sagittarius is followed by, on June 16th, the sun in Gemini creating two aspects at the same time. On the one hand, the sun in Gemini creates a trine to Saturn and Aquarius, and then it creates a square to Neptune and Pisces. So again, I'll leave you with a few scenarios, with a few interpretations of this, because it can be really great or it can not. Sun in Gemini trine Saturn, any Saturn in Aquarius, anytime we have an aspect between the Sun and Saturn, but particularly a trine, this presents itself as an opportunity for us to really show up and step up for ourselves. That's what trines are. A lot of times, trines are described as positive aspects, but there's this small implication that somehow like this energy just makes things happen for us, and that could not be farther from the truth with any aspect, but especially a trine. Yes, a trine is positive, but this is the universe saying, here's an opportunity. What are you going to do with it? Especially when the Sun and Saturn are involved, because the Sun represents our identity, our vitality, this body, right? It represents this meat suit, this ego. What is this going to do? What is this going to commit to, Saturn? And because it's a trine, and because it's in Gemini and Aquarius, because this is intellectual air energy, how are you going to show up for yourself? Again, practically. What do you know you need to do? What do you know you need to do? What are the steps you need to take? The Sun creating then a square to Neptune in Pisces. This, on the one hand, if you're a creative or an artist, beautiful energy, because anytime the Sun meets Neptune, particularly in a square, there can be like on a very superficial lack of clarity. Okay, but this is like your imagination can just be going wild. But what are you going to do with that imagination? What are you going to, if you're creating a vision board, beautiful. You have all of these ideas for the vision board. This is what I want. This is what I want to align with, manifest. Okay, but the Sun is still connecting to Saturn. This is available. You are not crazy for imagining and wanting these things, but what are you going to do about it? This, on the other hand, can be wasted opportunity, like a wasted opportunity because of that square to Neptune in Pisces. And this can be us like completely dissociating, completely like, ignoring the responsibility that comes with Saturn. And that'd be a shame, because this is actually really great energy.
Yeah. So I have two cards for those two aspects. The first one is the Six of Swords. And in this particular deck, it looks a little bit sad or, difficult or challenging. But really, the essence is the same across all decks. It's that, and it's usually a boat. There's somebody leaving in a boat, and there's some, choppy waters a little bit and whatnot. And swords are all about, again, it's air signs. So, the Gemini stuff and all of that. But you're leaving something behind. You're able to just, if you take that step, if you get on that boat right now, you are able to leave the choppy waters, the difficult situation, the thing that could have been worse if you stayed behind, if you didn't make the decision, if you didn't whatever. Just that little bit of action away from it actually takes you away. Once you get in that boat, the current takes you away. You're just sort of ahead of the storm the whole way, and then the storm goes the other direction. That's really what that's about. And you don't need to solve the whole problem. You just need to take that step to solve that problem, and the universe will handle the rest of it. It can also be a little adventure or a journey over water or all of those very traditional things, but it can also be in a very abstract sense as well. Now the other aspect is really funny. This is our first major arcana, and almost our only one. But again, it's a number one. So we go back to a one, and it's the Magician. And there's an infinity symbol here and an infinity symbol there. And this is the card of pure creation, manifestation, all that sort of thing. And when you were talking about, sort of be careful what you're, don't let this pass you by. I'm thinking of like Fantasia, of Mickey Mouse with the magic wand creating all this stuff. It's like, what would you actually create if you found a real magic wand right now on that day? What would you do? Would you just go around like, zapping bugs with it, or like, putting rabbit ears on your friend and bunny tails on the dog, or are you actually going to do something worthwhile? And it's like, don't pick up that magic wand unless you're actually willing to manifest something. And then 5 days later, don't complain that you didn't take that opportunity. Like, oh my God, I had a magic wand and what did I do? So it's really, even if you're not a creative person, imagine you were a creative person. If I was a creative person right now, right today, in this moment, what is it that I would do? How would I spend my time? What would I draw to me?
Hmm.
All those words like drawing, spelling, creating, they're there for a reason, and we can do that. We really have that power to do it. And even if you don't believe in it, try it. Try it that day. Write down your wishes and desires. See what happens.
Yeah.
You might get carried away with it, and that might be amazing.
I actually love that. I actually love that because that Sun in Gemini square Neptune in Pisces, and this last card that you drew, it can have like a sense of delusion, right? Like the whatever that swirly thing is at the bottom, like
Mystical, magical.
right.
Yeah.
To me, that is Neptune in Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is a really great interpretation of it, right? If you want to be almost like delusional with your dreams and your and what you find yourself capable of, like I could be that. I could go there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, you can. But Saturn is also activated on the same day.
Yeah.
So, yes, you can. Yes, the universe, I think Neptune and Pisces in a really beautiful way because it's very murky, right? It can be like a tsunami that takes over if it's not structured. But Neptune and Pisces is also the reminder of we are connected to infinite possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But the sun in Gemini, which is indicative again of us, the personality, the identity, needs to give that those beautiful possibilities a route. We need to give that some direction. We need to give that some structure. So I love that because I feel I can see this aspect kind of just being presented as just another aspect and like a passive thing, like a momentary thing. I feel that this is actually one of my favorite times of the month because if we are intentional
Mm-hmm.
and plant the seeds, do something with that, something really beautiful can come from it. Um, so just throwing that out there, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
On June 18th, we have Venus and Taurus again create a square to Saturn in Aquarius. So this is Venus again. Venus represents our desires, our values, how we value ourselves, our sense of self-worth. In Taurus, how are we grounded in those values? How are we grounded in our sense of self-worth? Squaring Saturn in Aquarius. So to me, and because Saturn at this point is retrograde, to me, this is how I'm asserting myself. And there's tension because of that to those around me. Stuff is coming up. People are getting used to this new me. I'm getting used to this new me. Who am I? Who do I think I am? That kind of thing. On the other hand, I do think that it further emphasizes this, what we just talked about, this energy of June 16th. I think it's like, these are my desires. And a square, a 90-degree angle, it's usually a catalyst for action. It slows us down a bit. It slows us down to say, these are your desires. Saturn in the mix again. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to implement? So this is why we said at the beginning, we've had the time to purge, to leave behind, to process, to feel. June doesn't really allow for much of that. It really doesn't. It's asking the question of, if we go into the narrative, if we go into our spiel of, oh, but what if I'm not good enough? Or what if the cosmos are saying, all right, but is that true now? What have you got at your disposal? All right, what are you going to do about it? Like this no nonsense type of thing.
Yeah, and it's funny too. So we had that magician, which is a one, and if you remember our little, so anybody into numerology or anything, this is just an extra little funny thing that's happening this month. So we get a one, and then we get a five, a six, and a five, which is an 11, 11,
Mm.
and they're mirrors of each other for the next four aspects. So we get this magician, the one major arcana that we've got, and then 11, 11. And the first part of that, and I'm happy that you said tension, because the fives are all about change, frustration, tension. There's something, there's a little bit of a like a glitch in the gears. And if you look closely, this is really all the same person in
Mm.
fighting little things. You know, it's almost like a dream time. And look at, there's that fire up there. And wands are fiery. They're all the fire signs, fire element. And these are the little ways that we're kind of fighting ourselves, or we're changing something and we face resistance, or you're trying to do something in a different way, but somebody's expecting you to behave in the same old way, and you find them annoying, they find you annoying, and you know, all of that stuff, and you get mad at the, you know, at your keys because you picked up the wrong set, or you know, it's those little petty things as you begin to work out the new pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. It, I think it's appropriate to go on to what June 19th brings us, because it's still, again, Venus and Taurus, but now Venus is sextiling Neptune in Pisces. So this is lovely, yet again, creative energy. This is, again, that Neptune in Pisces is infinite possibilities. Venus in Taurus, though, is saying, I am I am grounded and I rest assured in that I am capable of anything I actually set my mind to and set and implement practical steps to attain. All of a sudden, those possibilities are not impossible. They're possible, and I'm patient along the process. So this Venus and Taurus sextile Neptune and Pisces, anytime we have earth and water energy, I like to remember that there is room for fertile ground. There's fertile ground for something there. And it's a sextile. So this is sextiles, like trines in the zodiac, are opportunities for us to step into. They are not aspects that are strong enough to bring something to the surface for us, like full moons or squares or oppositions. Sextiles and trines are opportunities for us to step into this fertile ground. Now, on the flip side, if we are expressing the Venus and Taurus in the way that you mentioned earlier, that kind of like, you know, in a tyrant way, like this is my way or the highway, I sink in my heels. Um, then we have earth and water that can create just mud, right? And we create this mud that we had just have to like drag our feet through, and then it's like it's counterproductive. So we want to be mindful of how we are exercising this energy. On a more, you know, mundane type of interpretation, because it's Venus and Taurus, and Venus and Taurus loves the finer things in life, and it's connecting with Pisces on that day. Great day for R&R. I mean, you want to get a facial, you want to get a massage, you need some time alone, you need to meditate, kind of take a day off. Lovely day for that as well, especially if you want to experience this like in nature. I can definitely see this being a day where you take off, where you take a hike, uh, or go to the beach or something. Really beautiful day for that as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I like your, you know, your earth analogies. I might be rubbing off on you with the fertile ground and then the mud, because mud isn't good for growing things, but the right blend, the right type of soil with the right amount of moisture is, you know, there is an ideal scenario there for growing things. Too much of
Absolutely.
anything is not going to be good. So there is that balance. I love that aspect because my sun is in Pisces, my Venus is in Pisces, and my rising sign is Taurus. So when I see a an aspect like that, I feel like this. I feel like this girl.
Yes. Yeah.
Ta-da! And so again, so now we have the Six of Wands. So we just had the 5 and then the Six of Wands. Whenever we see these consecutive numbers in the same suit, there's something to pay attention to, that there's a progression of something that's really important. So the 5 and the 6 becomes an 11. So now we've got a 1, a 1, 1. And this is a card of recognition. So on the positive side, you may be introverted. You may be used to being in the background. You may be used to, you know, kind of hiding away. And I really wish that this happened. And everybody's moving past you. And this is the day where you, if you want those things again, you have to step up. It's not just wishing them silently in the corner. You actually have to go forward and stand proudly and say, yes, it's my turn. Thank you. The opposite, like you were saying, there's that, you know, downside as well of being arrogant, of like always wanting to be in the spotlight, always wanting the accolades for nothing. Like, I'm so special, da da da. All of that stuff is the downside of this card. So finding that balance, but it's a really, this is a wonderful card of victory and arriving and some applause and some self-indulgence. You know, a little self-indulgence is fine.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful card.
Yeah,
That's a really beautiful card.
there's the you know, there's this laurel wreath there, and so we still have the fire aspect for the wands, and there is an audience there in the background, but it doesn't really matter. She's standing in the spotlight. She probably can't see all those people anyway.
Right.
Ta-da! Like,
Such a great point. I love that. She's standing in the spotlight. She probably can't see those people anyway, because it's not about that. It's about standing and shining in your own light. I love that. Yeah. Okay. So June 20th, we have Mercury and Gemini sextile Jupiter and Aries. Multiple interpretations for this. On the one hand, I think whenever there's Gemini and Aries, I just think like a lot, like, especially Jupiter in Aries, Mercury in its home sign of Gemini, a lot of communication, a lot of data, a lot of back and forth. So I'm not mad at it. I think like if you wanted to, you know, hang out with friends on this day, I think it's actually a really lovely energy for that. If you are in a work environment where you're bouncing ideas off of each other, could be great. You just want to be mindful that not one person is trying to be like the person, the idea person, right? Because of Jupiter and Aries, that can inflate the ego. I think this can also be a day where we can expect like good news coming out of nowhere. You know, Mercury, the messenger, and Jupiter being like the expanded messenger from different places in Aries. Lovely energy for that. We want to be mindful of exaggerating our words, and we want to be mindful of over-promising and under-delivering. Okay, because I think Gemini air energy, it's like, there's not much forethought. It's just data, stuff. Oh, look at all the stuff. Look at all my options. Gemini is great in reminding us that we have options, especially for those of us that can be like tunnel vision, narrow-minded. We need that sometimes. But sometimes it's like, okay, at some point we have to choose something. And not have our energy dispersed in all of the options. And Jupiter, remember, Jupiter is, it's optimistic, it's expansive, it can bring good luck, but Jupiter expands what it touches. So if you have too many options, Jupiter can bring on that many more options, and then you're overwhelmed. Use the energy wisely. Stand grounded in your values with Venus and Taurus there almost all month, and decide, okay, yes, I have a lot of cool options, but what actually feels true to me? What actually feels honest to me? What aligns with my values? And all of a sudden, this energy I think it's fun. I think Mercury in Gemini is fun. Jupiter in Aries is fun. Don't let it overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm. So here's our second 6 in a row, the 6 of Cups. And this is about, you may have people from the past show up.
Mm.
You may be revisiting old things, but it's also about, there's a very social aspect to it. It's also about hanging out with your people. So to avoid conflicts, it's best not to associate at this time with people who are too oppositional. There's other times in the month where that's really beneficial because it allows you to expand and see a different perspective. In this case, it's not that day. Today's the day where you want comfortable, you want sort of ease and sameness, and everybody to kind of go, let's do this today. And everybody goes, yeah, we'll do that. And it's not any of the, yeah, well, I can't because it's just like, let's just keep it light and easy and pleasant. And there is, if it's a love thing, there is this also, the soulmate kind of vibe with it. There's stuff from the past, your past lives, past this life, all of that stuff sort of coming up. And even just within you, those habits and patterns and things and messages that repeat themselves, they come back. And some of them are nostalgic and some of them are no longer useful. So it's yeah, it's an overall pleasant, warm, fuzzy, cuddly kind of day.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really glad that you brought up, someone from the past coming back, because this isn't the first time that Mercury in Gemini connects to Jupiter in Aries. We have to remember that back in May, Jupiter went into Aries on the day that Mercury went retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
So during that whole Mercury retrograde transit, they connected at some point via sextile. This I believe is the second time that they do that. So inevitably it has to do with something along the lines of that. So if there are any, excuse me, unfinished conversations, this can be it. I also love the fact that you said, let's keep it light, because it's Gemini and Aries. Like, the last thing that energy is about is heaviness and like drudgery. And no, it's Gemini and it's Aries. All right. Yeah, we probably, I don't know, we had a big fight last month. All right. Okay. I'm sorry. You're sorry. Okay. Like that's Gemini and Aries. So if you want to come back to talk to someone, especially if this is in a romantic relationship and you want to come back with the big heavy drama, it's not going to be received. The energy is not there for it.
Yeah.
The energy is about, all right, we've been there, done that. Let's move forward. Let's move forward. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
And this is so appropriate because on June 21st, we finally have the sun moving into Cancer, which means that we have the summer solstice, at least up here in the Northern Hemisphere. And at the same time, Venus and Taurus again is creating a powerful trine to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. So when you and I recorded the episode of the equinox a few months ago, that was, at this point it's going to be 3 months ago. That was, I remember saying something along the lines of, this is the transition to the beginning.
Yeah,
this is the transition to the beginning. So notice how June is about, it really does feel like a beginning. This energy is about getting your stuff together, and like, no, we got to move forward. What's the plan? What are we implementing? Right. And interestingly enough, we have the summer solstice, which is the beginning of the summer. So the sun in Cancer represents the home, the sense of unconditional love, the sense of nurturance, mothering. Where do we feel safe, right? And Venus and Taurus creating a trine to Pluto and Capricorn on that same day. Venus and Taurus just play such a massive role. Again, what are my values? What matters to me? What brings me a sense of self-worth? What makes me feel valued in my life? And creating a trine to Pluto and Capricorn is a trine. Remember, we get to choose. And Pluto and Capricorn, part of the massive transformation is you've come to this sense of self-worth and value based on the transformation you've experienced over the last couple of years. What aligns with that? And this happening at a portal like the solstice, where it's a new beginning over the next 3 months, it's, you have to plant the seeds that feed this. You have to plant the seeds that feed this sense of self-worth and value. I love that. I love that a lot.
So it's the cards that showed up for this are so mind-blowing to me. And this first one is really strange when you first look at it. So we've just done 1, 5, 6, 6, 5. Okay. And you're thinking, well, that doesn't look pleasant at all for the solstice. And you can see this over here, this liberation, okay? It's very much like our girl standing on the stage in the victory position. Okay. So the swords are all again about this thought stuff. Thinky, 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 thinky. And there's this little messenger here going, hey, buddy, get out of your head. Look it over here. And he's just like, oh, God, like all that stuff I wished for back on the spring equinox. And I don't even remember what it was. Like, did I manifest this? I'm going through a portal. Like, is it okay to go through the portal? Is it safe? It's all of that, but it's petty. It's just the 5 of swords. Again, like the 5 of wands. It's not major stuff. It's like all the little static that you're receiving. It's minor. It's just static. It's like something clinging to your pant leg. That's all. It's not, this is not a life-altering thing, the glitches that you're feeling at that time. And that's contrasted with, talk about the portal, the 3 of cups, and you're talking about something trining. These 3 people that are here, they're all linked up together. And she's got that symbol, and I never pronounce it correctly, but it's a drawing to you symbol. When the swirls go in one direction, it's about drawing things to you. When they go in the other direction, it's about sending something away from you. And there's 3 of them. And what are they looking at? They're all dressed up. It's a summer evening, it looks like, on the solstice. And they're looking up at the stars, and they're looking up at Pleiades. And it's this portal. That's what they're staring at. And I can't make this up.
Yeah.
And it's like, standing with your people, the people who are closest to you, the people, who you call your family, your home. Home is where the heart is. All of that kind of stuff goes along with this. And there's some kind of, there's celebration happening. It doesn't have to be a big event. It could be things like, engagements and, weddings. And it is that season where people do things like that. But it could be just simple, like, let's put on our sundresses and go sit under the stars, whatever, with our
Yeah.
closest people. Yeah.
And I love you're bringing up the theme of, the closest people, the relationships, because I think if there's one thing that Venus has been doing all year long, Venus is the planet of relationship, but there has been a significant shift in relationships, not just romantic, but I think that people are becoming much more choosy, of who they genuinely feel that is safe space for them. And I
Yeah.
think that whenever we do, personal work, some of the first things that change are our relationships, because we begin to notice things and do things differently. So be mindful of that, because Venus being such a part of this Cancer solstice is about that, is about who are my people, who feels like family. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we create our own families in so many ways. And and also people who might have been your family, depending, what age you are. Sometimes people are coming out of college and they've developed these friendships, but then everybody goes off and does their thing, and those people no longer hold the same position in their life. And sometimes they do, and they last forever until you're in your 50s or 60s or whatever. There's people who come and go, and right now we're going through that realignment in a big way, not just in the usual way. It's in a much bigger way of like, who and what do I align with? What feels like home?
Yes, yes. So on June 22nd, Venus leaves Taurus and moves into Gemini. So this is lighter energy. This is air energy. Venus in Gemini is a social butterfly. Venus in Gemini is a talker, great salesperson. So this on the one hand is, I mean, we're starting, technically the summer. So this is great. Like if you're single and you want to mingle, take advantage of Venus and Gemini. Do it. I mean, I think a Venus and I've met several people with Venus and Gemini and they can talk like no one else. And it's amazing because that means I don't have to talk, which is great. I'm a great listener. Um, the Venus and Gemini is fun. I mean, it's again, just picture the social butterfly. This is also great for if you want to step into the energy, if you want to collaborate with others, if you've been thinking about, different ideas, like step into that. Because remember, right the day before, on June 21st, Venus's last major aspect before it moves into a different sign is Venus and Taurus trining Pluto in Capricorn. So this is about, who are my people? What is my sense of self-worth? What are my values? How do I align with that? And now Venus moving into Gemini is saying, I'm going to look at different options with this foundation of my values, in my heart, right? I now know what type of people it feels safe to be around. So I'm going to socialize and see if I can meet more people, if I can collaborate with people, if I can, get into projects with other people. Venus in Gemini is about relationships and expanding them across the board.
Mm. So we're now going to hit 222, okay, with all the cards, and it's
Okay.
really interesting which of the twos is not there.
Hmm.
Okay, a little bit. And this is a bit of a strange card, but I'll tell you how this pertains to this situation. So swords, again, we've gotten a lot of these because there's a lot of air happening with all the fire. We've had a lot of fire and a lot of air.
Mhm.
And when you and I spoke initially, we were talking about fanning the fire. The air fans the fire, it makes the fire happen. In all the decks, there's always a person with a little blindfold on. And in this particular deck, the swords are often represented by these crows. And she's all kind of tangled up in there because it's about all that communication, all that Venus and Gemini coming at you. It's like trying to find balance in that information.
Mhm.
It's a lot of information. It's a lot of up here. How do I, it helps when you close your eyes and you're not also inundated with another sense, some extra sensory, well, I didn't mean it in that way. Sensory stimuli.
Mhm.
But if you keep it just to what are the messages, what is the content, what is the whatever, then you can actually listen to a lot more when you're not inundated with all of the other stuff. And it's a two, and twos are always about finding the balance between, you know, is this information for me? How do I find who is this person? Why are they talking? Why are they talking to me? Do they like me? Am I supposed to like them? Or am I supposed to listen? I missed that. They were talking too fast. And it's all of that. And it's kind of funny because it may not be apparent right away when you look at the picture because you're like, oh, that looks just like our Five of Swords guy. It's like that looks unpleasant. But it's a very minor thing of being able to navigate all that information. That's all.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a life altering thing. Two of Swords, it's just like clear that clutter again, like clear
Mhm.
that clutter, find that balance again. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. It doesn't have to be that heavy or that serious. A few days later, on June 27th, we have Mars in Aries creating a sextile to Saturn in Aquarius. So Saturn in Aquarius gets a lot of hits, a lot of action this month, and I think that's just a constant reminder of what's your task at hand. What what is important. What is important to you? Um, and one of the things we want to keep in mind is that Saturn doesn't necessarily like mean more work. If anything, the principle of Saturn is less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn reminds us if we're clear on what matters, then everything that we choose, it will align with that. And a lot of times it's not a lot of stuff. So Mars in Aries, Mars is in its home sign in Aries, right? There's not any forethought at all. It's like, I want to run, I want to sprint. While Saturn is about running a marathon. So Mars in Aries wants to sprint, but Saturn in Aquarius, especially Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, is no, we're not. You're right, right. One of the questions that I've came up for me as this Mars was moving into Aries, especially when it came out of Pisces and into Aries, and it did that whole thing, was, am I moving assertively or am I moving fast?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a big difference there, because if we're moving assertively, which is also an attribute of Mars in Aries, we don't have to move fast. And a lot of times when we move really fast, it's usually because we're not sure where we're going.
Yeah.
Or we're trying to avoid a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So ask yourself that question with Mars in Aries, because Mars remains in Aries till July 5th. Am I moving assertively or am I moving fast? And if I'm moving assertively, then the sextile to Saturn in Aquarius is nice. Because Saturn retrograde, remember, the point of Saturn retrograde is to implement a lot of the lessons that came with the eclipses. So we're moving slowly. We're assimilating to something new. And Mars in Aries is saying, I'm moving assertively in this direction and I trust the process. And remember, it's a sextile. So we get to choose the attitude we have towards this energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we are finding ourselves frustrated, if we're trying to move as quickly as Mars in Aries and things are not moving that quickly because Saturn is retrograde, then where's the disconnect? Where's the disconnect? Why are you trying to move so fast? What are you trying to control? Instead of understanding that slow and steady does win the race.
It reminds me of something my father used to say to me as a kid. He used to yell out and say, "Hurry up, slowly."
Yes.
There was always a little pause, and I'd be like, "Well, which do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?" And so here's our second two out of the three, is the Two of Pentacles. And that's, again, about balancing. All the twos are about finding this balance. And it may be frustrating. So the Pentacles are about practical things, financial things, tangible things. And at this time, that might be a day, don't overspend. You're waiting on a check, don't count your chickens before they're hatched, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's that money comes in and it goes out. Money comes in and it goes out. And you might feel frustrated with that, thinking, oh, whenever I get X amount of dollars, then this unexpected thing happens and I have to pay for it. Whereas the change in perception is, isn't it amazing that every time one of these unexpected things happens, I have this money from nowhere that covers it. And it's kind of preventing you from overspending or overindulging. The universe is like, you're in this mood right now where, you want to run wild and throw money at everything or whatever it is. You want to, that running quickly, you want to do it. The universe is going, well, I'm only going to give you enough. You want to run the marathon, but I've given you a pair of flip-flops. So we'll see how far you get. It might frustrate you, but it's like, okay, well, I've got flip-flops. So this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to take a leisurely stroll until they cause blisters, and that's about it. And so however that works for you, it's just finding that pace, finding that balance in this, again, practical, know that this is in your best interest. Whatever this pace is, it may be faster than you thought, it might be slower than you thought, or whatever, but whatever that pace is for this duration, it is there to benefit you, to protect you from yourself or from something else.
Yeah. I once again, I'm so glad that you brought up the point of whatever this pace is for you is the pace that you need now, because, you know, we have been talking about how June is about moving forward. But we're talking about it in the sense that, energetically speaking, we're not meant to be stuck in the same emotional space, in the same mental space anymore. We're meant to just move along. And so I think that's an important distinction to make, because by moving forward, we don't necessarily mean quickly.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
We mean moving forward.
yeah, and that's all it is.
Mhm,
It's also that awareness that our perception of time is just that. It's a perception of time.
mhm.
It doesn't exist in reality the way we perceive it.
Right.
And that's all it is. It's a perception. And
Yeah.
that's hard to deal with when you know you have to show up at work when your watch says this or that, to sort of superimpose this metaphysical concept of time is not linear
Mhm.
while we're living in this everything's calculated and compartmentalized.
Yes.
So again, that is like that symbol, of balancing those two ideologies.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah. For sure. I love that. I love the balance, the twos that are coming up. It's an important message. It's an important message, because a lot of times we can go from one extreme to another. Well, if I'm not moving fast, then I'm moving slow. Well, that's a relative interpretation, because what's slow for you is not slow for another. So being mindful of that, that's a really great point.
mhm.
Um, on June 28th, we have a few things happening. We have a new moon in Cancer. We have Neptune going retrograde in Pisces till December. And we have the sun in Cancer create a square to Jupiter in Aries. So this is a rather dynamic new moon, uh, because if the sun is squaring Jupiter in Aries, then that means that the moon is as well. So naturally, a new moon in Cancer is of new beginnings. New moons tend to be less emotional than full moons, but this particular moon, it's in its home sign. So just the essence that I get, because I know what's happening at the end of the year once Neptune goes direct in December and what happens then. I think that this new beginning is going to feel very emotional, because Neptune retrograde in Pisces is about endings. It's Neptune in its home sign of Pisces, in the last degrees of Pisces, which represents an ending already in the last sign of the zodiac. And what happens at the end of the year is that something will, because of other Pisces energy, something will really come to an end. Sign, seal, delivered, by. To me, this is like the recognition of, if I really want to start this something new, it inevitably comes with this ending that feels very much like a sense of home, something known. Um, with every new beginning, there's an ending, but I feel just how it's hitting me. It's just, this feels different. This feels different. And that squaring, the moon and the sun squaring Jupiter in Aries, can be like an exaggerated expression of that. So if it is hard, which I think it will, that there's an emotional component there, like an emotional tie, if you will,
Mhm.
come back to center. Don't, because chances are that what you know has to come to an end in order for something to begin, you've already known. So it doesn't have to be like this big thing. It doesn't have to be blown out of proportion, which can be the potential with that Jupiter in Aries there. It doesn't have to be that. Of course, are you allowed to be emotional about it? Of course, but come back to center, come back to presence.
Yeah, so this is our third two in a row. And we've seen, again, I'm going to say it again, that there's lots of fire and there's lots of air in this. And yeah, Cancer is emotional, but in this case, we've got the Two of Wands. So it's the Two of Fire. And this is like, looking out. So she's looking out the window. She's planning something. She's got one stick. The globe is there. The world of opportunity
Mhm.
is sitting with her, and she's looking out the window at how does that begin? How does that begin? And I have to leave this one behind. I'm taking this one with me and I'm leaving this one behind. And there is this feeling of like woefulness or longing or something of like, she's just longing for something. She's not yet there. Of
Right.
She's not standing up, she's not walking outside. And then we have, and you said ending like 5 times, and look at what we have. The
Wow.
Ten of Wands. And again, it's fire energy. It's that burden. It's not the 9 anymore. The 9 is the end. When we get to the 10, it's just before that reset. It's a 1 and a 0. And it's the biggest burden you could have. You are ready to lay it down
Mhm.
once and for all. Lay down that burden and walk away. And she's not even carrying the bulk of it here. This yak or whatever he is, and all these little wands along the way, lighting her path. And she's come down off of that big hill. She's not climbing up it. She's just come down from it, carrying all her stuff, and most of it is being carried by this this companion. And then we move into the next one. Oh, look what we have, the Three of Wands.
Mhm.
So talk about finding, you're talking about centering. Well, I should actually put them this way. Wait, let's get this right here. So look at this. 2 and 3, and in the middle, we've got that burden that we're ready to drop.
Yep.
So he goes from yearning and longing and wishing and wanting and getting all emotional and weepy and woe is me, how do I execute the plan, to all right, there I am. Got the surfboard. I don't care if it's middle of the night. I got my torches. The water looks good. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah.
Just waiting for that wave so I can ride it into the next thing. And so the interesting thing there, if you've been paying attention, what is the card? What is the 2 that is not there? The 2 of Cups. And that's the one about that that love relationship, that deep friendship, that deep partnership. We're preparing, if that is something that you're aiming for, that you're going for, you've noticed that this whole month of June is about clearing the way, making the plan, standing in your own truth, doing all that stuff, finding all the balance with everything else before you find that.
Wow.
So it's not always about what's there, but it's like, why do we have all the 2s but that one?
Hmm. Love that. I love that. I mean, I don't, I'm not, I don't really know the tarot. I pull my daily cards, but I have to read the little book. Like, I don't. So for you to explain it in this way and to bring in the numbers and the numerology is such a treat. Those three cards really spelled out and just illustrated perfectly that aspect of that new moon in Cancer on the 28th, because that, when I saw this, I was like, that's exactly what I felt, the sequence of that.
Yeah, and also when you think of the 10s that we have the heavy sort of negative 10s this month. We don't have the 10 of Cups, which is like the Disney happily ever after, and they lived happily ever after. And we don't have the 10 of Pentacles, which is all of that plus the material stability and legacy. We don't have that either. So we don't have the 2. We have all kinds of 6s, but we don't have the Lovers, and we don't have we had the 6 of Cups, but so we, all of these things, it's like all of the other stuff has to be dealt with before we can get that other part.
Yeah.
In order to be the right person to attract those other things, we need to deal with all of this schmutz.
That's such a great point, because what that tells me, that helps make so much more sense of the emphasis in Jupiter and Aries, because we have to remember too that Jupiter remains in Aries direct till July, and then it begins retrograding from July to October, and then it's going to move back into Pisces in November and December of this year.
Mhm.
So this Jupiter and Aries energy, especially in June, is a glimpse of who we can be next year, the us that can unfold fully in 2023. And we're being presented with, okay, what are you going to do about it? Okay, what are you going to do about it? Because we have to remember that Jupiter, or that Aries, is the first sign of the zodiac. There's a new beginning.
Mhm.
So what you just said really just blew my mind, because if we're getting a glimpse of this new beginning that officially starts in 2023, and we have the opportunity to kind of build that now, who we envision to be, which is exactly what you said, we need to take care of these things first so that we can align and meet and do the things that we really desire. That makes so much more sense for what Jupiter and Aries represents this month. So we want to be mindful, because again, Jupiter and Aries can be inflated ego rather than moving forward purposefully. Yeah, love that. I love that. Finally, on June 29th, Venus and Gemini will sextile Jupiter and Aries. To me, this is similar to when Mercury and Gemini sextile Jupiter and Aries on June 20th. So 9 days later, Venus is doing what Mercury did a few days before. And so Venus and Gemini, again, the social butterfly, sextile Jupiter and Aries. Again, if this is, it's what you mentioned, let's keep it light, let's keep it easy. Because it's Venus, so there is obviously an emphasis in relating. Considering that this is the last important aspect of the month, and it's right after that new moon in Cancer, I can't help but think that there is some kind of emphasis in relationships, romantic relationships in particular, and it sets the tone for how we're going to move into July. Look, no one's looking for the heavy stuff anymore. That does not mean a lack of commitment. That just means that people have really met deep, profound parts of themselves. They are willing to, there are people out there willing to commit, but they don't want to feel trapped. They want to have, and I mean, think about that. Think about that. If each one of us has been through our dark night of the soul in some way, shape, or form over the last couple of years, and we're finally emerging in a new life, and we want to do it differently than we did before, the last thing we want is for someone to kind of stand in the way of that.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen.
Freedom and liberty are really important when it comes to romantic relationships. And this Venus and Gemini sextile Jupiter in Aries is, I love you. Have all the freedom in the world. Go do your thing. Expand. You social butterfly.
And we spoke about that, I remember, in our May podcast, because we were talking about love is freedom.
Yep.
Love is freedom.
Hmm.
And so, of course, it's just, it still blows my mind, and I don't know why I allow it to blow my mind. It should just be obvious that these things all align, and that's how they work. The one queen that we had in this whole reading was the Queen of Swords.
Hmm.
Remember her. She's the no nonsense. I'm sitting here with my sword drawn. You're gonna come up and say something to me. It better be good. It better be good, because I'm gonna pull this out, and you know, at the end of the month. So we were just saying how we have to clear all this other stuff before our divine counterpart can enter our sphere, whatever you want to say. Look at who we have at the end of the month.
Oh, wow.
Energy of the King of Swords. No, it doesn't have to be a person, and it's neither of them are gender specific. It's just the energy of that.
Hmm.
So the King of Swords, again, it's all of the birds that they're all these things in the air, and he is also He's got his sword at the ready, but he's sitting very casual. He's sitting high up. He's got foresight, clarity of thought. That is the Queen of Swords' divine counterpart. Now, whether it's a person or it's a situation, it's the thing that you receive after sending out your signal.
Mm-hmm.
This comes back to you at the end of the month. Now, when I pulled this, there was actually another card stuck to it, and it's the only second major arcana card, and it's again in sequence. So we had the 1, and this is the 2.
Wow.
And it's the High Priestess. And so by the end of the month, we really should have that clarity. So we started with the Ace of Swords, which is like just the mental, intellectual thinking, very conscious thought. This is on a different level. This is that clarity of thought, peeking behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz kind of thing. It's on an intuitive level. It takes that expansion from in the brain to outside into the greater whatever, into the cosmos, into the ethereal realm. And that's how we end the month. So it's this perfect month for opportunity and expansion, clarity, clearing, purging once and for all, slow and steady or fast and whatever, energetic, however you want to do it. But the opportunity is there to really like tidy up your life and have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's full of surprises too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I love that. I love those two last cards. And that last card of the priestess, this is just, if we're talking about relationships, for instance, I mean, really anything, like you said, finding the counterpart to anything, right? If there is a knowing that what we want also wants us, then why try to hold on to anything, control anything,
Yeah.
manipulate anything?
Yeah.
And both those cards remind us of that.
And so when we look at there's our other 2.
Yeah.
And the fact that she showed up first and then him, if we put them together, they're like this. They're not like this.
Right.
They are actually looking at each other, from mountain peak to mountain peak, because one's at the beginning of the month and one is at the end of the month. There's a lot of stuff in between, but they're kind of like, hey, yoo-hoo.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that that Venus in Aries is that first card. And I'm sorry, not Venus in Aries, Venus in Taurus. And it's this feminine principle, the principle of receptivity, that everything that happens in between requires our calculated action. It requires that, again, our practical action.
Yeah.
And at the end, we come to the masculine energy that meets us halfway. That's really beautiful balance of energy, because to me, the king is Aries energy. It's partially Mars in Aries and its home sign, and then Venus in Taurus and its home sign. So this beautiful balance of masculine and feminine energy that we don't have to go from one extreme to another. We could just show up on a daily basis, clear-minded, clear-headed, as much as possible, intentionally. That's beautiful.
And knowing that the universe, if your intention is for clarity and truth and disambiguity and all of those things, the universe will say, okay, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Clouds, let's clear things up.
Yeah.
And while we've been talking, I have to say the sky has become half blue. It was all kind of gray and overcast, so it's a little, the universe is
The universe concurs.
Yes, the universe definitely concurs.
Yes. So thank you all so much for joining us yet for another month. We got a lot of feedback on May's on May's forecast, so we're glad that that was helpful. And as always, we hope that this is helpful, and we will see you all next month. Thanks so much, Susheela.
Yes, thank you too.
Bye.